All right. Here we are. Welcome to the channel chat, folks. We're just going to give it a couple minutes until we officially kick off. Thank you for joining. If you want to pop into the chat, maybe, let's see, what's the question of the day? How about what are you wearing on your feet? I will admit I have slippers on.
I'm slippering as well, Vicky. The home office thing.
It's a home office thing. I know. I saw after the pandemic was winding down and people were getting back to the office, they were having dress as you like wear your best Zoom outfit. So they'd be all dressed on top and shorts and flip-flops or slippers and pajama pants.
Yeah, I'm staying firmly seated for the duration of this event.
Me as well. I know. We have lots of good things to wear on top, sweaters and blouses and earrings and all the things. And so if anybody wants to share in the chat what you're wearing on your feet, it's a good little thing to start with today, and then we'll get started here in another minute. So Wednesday, I'm broadcasting from Denver today, where I've been down here in partner meetings for a couple of days, and it's been pretty nice, unbelievable for late November.
Here in the UK, the weather has just turned. It's gone below freezing. We use Celsius here, so yeah, down to 0 for us.
Not ready for that yet. It's 9. Absolutely so not. I have my laptop on Celsius. It's 9 Celsius, so that's not bad.
I can see why there's no snow if it's hanging around at that temperature for you.
Exactly. Just light jacket weather.
Why are you in Celsius?
Because I work for a Canadian company. I work with a lot of people in Canada.
Yes, represent for the metric system and sensible units.
I know. My watch is in Fahrenheit, so 51 degrees. So I can actually know
live translate. Fair enough.
Exactly. Well, it's a couple minutes after. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Thanks so much for joining. I'm Vicki Patton, run the channel team here at Aptum. And we started the channel chat. So welcome today. We started this 2 months ago. So this is our third one. And really the intention of the channel chat is to enable you, our partners, as well as customers that are listening in, to the things that we're hearing about and in the industry around cloud strategy. There's a lot going on right now. So the last couple of channel chats, we've been talking a lot about cloud repatriation and workload rebalancing and why that's happening and how that's impacting companies these days. So today we're going to take that a little bit of a step further because it can get very complex. And we're going to be talking about Kubernetes and really technologies that will take your cloud to the next level of modernization. So I've got with me today Ant Newman from Spectro Cloud. So Ant, why don't I hand it to you to do an appropriate introduction?
It sounds like you think I'm going to be inappropriate. That sounds pretty shocking.
Well,
I would never.
I might not, do it properly. So you're Fair great enough. At what you do. So let's hear about it.
Well, thank you. As you can tell by the accent, I'm British. I work for an American company, Spectro Cloud. We're based in lovely Silicon Valley in San Jose. My role in the team, I'm actually in the marketing team, so I'll hold my hand up. I'm not going to try and sell to you today, whether you're a partner or a customer eavesdropping. But I've been in technology for about 20 years now, and I lead a lot of our research here at Spectro Cloud. So I will try to avoid plugging my latest research report. But I've been at Spectro Cloud for about 3.5 years now, and even in that time, we have seen Kubernetes, which we're going to be here talking about today, evolve so much. So I'd love to share some of that insight with you guys today.
That is awesome. So that's a great segue. Let's just dive in and let's start out with a little bit of Kubernetes 101 because when I started hearing about Kubernetes years ago, I know it's about 11 years old now,
Mhm.
and I started hearing about it first. I'm thinking, what a cool name, Kubernetes. What is it? I'm thinking, okay, it's a container, it's a box that you can put workloads in, you can put data in, and you can move it around. Like it's the simplest terms, but it's so much more than that, and it's got so much value. So why don't you give us a little bit of the kind of 101, what's
Yeah.
Kubernetes, where did it come from, and help us understand really the value that it's bringing to customers today.
Mhm. Well, a great way in is the name Kubernetes itself. So it's from the Greek, and it essentially translates as helmsman. So it's the person who steers your container ship in this metaphor. So
Love
we
that.
have modern applications that are no longer big fat virtual machines. They're containerized, often stateless microservices, and you have chopped all your applications up into lots and lots of little bits, and you need to run lots and lots of instances of them if you are operating at the kind of scale of, say, Google. And Google being the entity that created Kubernetes, it was originally called Borg, to run inside its data centers, running workloads at scale. And that's a really useful context to think about what Kubernetes is and what it's for, and maybe some of the challenges that we still face with Kubernetes. It is a container orchestration engine by design, which means it takes care of scheduling all of your applications on all of your available compute resources. You tell it what you want it to do in a declarative way, and it will make that happen. So if one of your nodes falls over, it will start applications up somewhere else to maintain the way that you want your infrastructure to run. And really, it's spent the last 11 years. Starting at that point, it was donated to the open source community. The CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation, started up, and since then there's just been this explosion of innovation and maturity to go along with it. So we've ended up 11 years later now where almost every large enterprise uses Kubernetes in some form, not necessarily for everything, but they're almost always doing something with it. And we've ended up with this massive ecosystem of software built up around this core of Kubernetes, that all of these different layers of the software stack, thousands of projects and loads of different vendors all working around Kubernetes. So it's become one of the hottest software projects out there. Like the last thing I saw was that it's the second most popular open source project ever after Linux itself. So that gives you a sense
Wow.
of some of the scale.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is solid into companies, into the industry right now, and it doesn't rely on any one infrastructure, correct?
No, exactly. It started in the data center, but you can look around now and you will find implementations of Kubernetes, whether it's as a managed service or as a distribution, just like a Linux distribution, that runs in all of the major hyperscalers, sovereign clouds, neo clouds, managed service providers, inside your own data center, on bare metal or on virtualized, and even down to like Raspberry Pis, you can run Kubernetes on it. It's kind of become the anywhere platform for modern applications. So yeah, and that's one of its strengths, and one of the reasons why organizations have chosen it is because it is so versatile.
Yes. So that fits in perfectly with the whole workload rebalancing conversation that we've been having because that can help determine which of the workloads being managed by
Mm.
Kubernetes should be sitting in which environment so they're maximum performance and getting all the services that they need to help them run.
Yeah, we've definitely had customers with us who are using Kubernetes as a lever in like a cloud to cloud migration, or they want some kind of consistency as they're running in a multi-cloud strategy, not spanning a single cluster across clouds, but they've got a little bit everywhere to reduce risk in the case of things like the AWS outage of last month.
Yeah.
And Cloudflare today, so we're all having fun here.
Oh,
Um,
I know. That popped right up. I've already been seeing the memes on LinkedIn.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, cloud repatriation is a part of it as well. Like in theory, any application that you have running in AWS IaaS or your EKS, you can run in your data center too. The reality is that portability is not straightforward, because things like AWS has its own identity management, its own load balancer, its own storage, and those things are not always completely transferable. But it's a huge head start to be using a common substrate like Kubernetes across all your different environments, rather than being completely tied into a proprietary stack, whether it's data center or cloud or whatever.
Right, right. Well, let's start talking about some of the use cases, because there are many use cases, and you've already talked about a few of them. We just talked about the AWS outage. So and you mentioned earlier that the ability to, if one shuts down, it automatically moves to another. So why don't we walk through some of those use cases? And I know you have some of them you want to address initially.
Yeah, I mean, we at Spectro Cloud, we cover a lot of ground, and so we've kind of bucketized many of the things that people are using Kubernetes for. There's lots more. I mentioned the ecosystem that's sprung up around it, and that's actually enabled people to use Kubernetes for way more than it was originally designed to. But that core use case of running in the cloud or running in the data center, the way I like to think about that is that it ties strongly into the concept of platform engineering, which is that you're there as an internal operations team, reporting up to the CIO to serve hundreds and hundreds of application developers, and all they care about is getting their software coded and into dev, test, staging, production, pushing changes as quickly as they can through CI/CD pipelines to make sure that your features that you are building that are generating revenue for your business are into production quickly. And so the job of an ops team is to make sure that there are clusters on demand. So we call it cluster as a service or Kubernetes as a service. And what you've got to think about there is, as an application team, I have preferences about where my clusters run. I want this one to be running in EKS. I want this one needs to be running at the edge because the application is retail specific for the store. How do I make sure that I can deliver that cluster on demand with as little friction as possible, so that my applications and my developers can be happy? So that's the first one, and it's a huge trend, and that's what's driving all of the use of cloud and data center. The second one I'd bring up is also related to applications, but with a slightly different spin. We've obviously had a lot of news over the last 2-3 years around virtual machines, and specifically VMware. And I'm certainly not in the business of kicking Broadcom, but there's already been a trend away from kind of legacy virtual machines, static infrastructure, towards this wonderful cloud native world that Kubernetes is a part of. And all of the VMware license changes have encouraged, I think, a lot of organizations to accelerate plans they already had underway to look at what should my infrastructure be? Is it going to be vSphere, or am I going to go to a Nutanix or a Hyper-V or whatever it might be? In our case, I think a lot of organizations are thinking, well, I've already got a load of my infrastructure, my applications running in Kubernetes. What if I could move my VM workloads into Kubernetes? And there is a project that's been going for quite a number of years now called KubeVirt that makes that happen. So you can run your one infrastructure stack with your one set of operations processes, and whether you've got containers or VMs, you now stick them in Kubernetes, and everything. I was going to say everything just works. It doesn't just work. There's a lot of complexity behind it, but that feels like, to me, like future proofing. And so we're seeing a big trend where a lot of our customers are coming to us and going, what do I, can you help me solve this problem? Like, I don't want to pay the VMware renewal fees for another year. So that's use case number 2, and that's a big one.
It is.
The third one that I'd bring up is AI, and I hate talking about AI because it sounds like you're just trend hopping. But we're just back from NVIDIA GTC a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's true to say that the tide is moving that AI infrastructure runs on Kubernetes. So whether you're building a massive AI factory in the data center, or you're running an inferencing workload like computer vision in a factory or retail, probably you're going to have Kubernetes in that software stack underneath your model and your various frameworks and operators and stuff. And that means that as organizations are starting to ramp up the new workloads that they're building under an AI era, I guess you could call it, they are looking at a modern software stack to run that. And so Kubernetes is really growing into that AI space and becoming kind of inseparable from it. And I've already mentioned stuff like computer vision and edge. Edge is a huge part of our business, and I think a massive growing area of Kubernetes in general. We're just at KubeCon last week, and we've been diamond or platinum sponsor of something called Edge Day, for since we began, because for us, like, Edge is a great way to leverage um, a lot of the advantages of Kubernetes in terms of stuff like resilience and portability of workloads. Um, but it's also just an area where organizations are really moving, particularly with stuff like AI. Because if you are running an AI workload that is, say, computer vision, I need I need to be piping a lot of data into a model for processing. And if I'm trying to do that over a 4G connection from a remote store, it's the latency is too long, the bandwidth is too high. That has to happen locally, which means you're no longer just having dumb terminals that connect to the cloud. You actually have to have compute running locally to run these applications. So there's loads more organizations now in every different vertical looking at AI and looking at edge and putting those two things together and realizing that's where they need to be. So we've gone from having Kubernetes just running one big cluster in the data center in the Google days 10 years ago to Kubernetes now being in the branch office, in the edge, running AI, running VM workloads, and loads more. And that's the ecosystem in action. Everyone's saying, what can I do with this multifunctional toy that we've built?
Right. Oh my gosh, it does so much. It's a long way away from what I was thinking it was, a couple of years ago. So, and AI is driving change in cloud strategy right
Mm.
now. To your point around edge computing, I'm thinking of retailers, especially manufacturing,
Yeah.
industries that have branches, that have sites all over,
Mm.
that they need that faster, higher performance, lower latency
Yeah.
ability to get to their data quickly.
And you can see it actually in almost every sector. Like, we've got a lot of customers in healthcare, for example. In
Yep.
addition to retail and manufacturing, there's one that's on our website, so it happens to be easy to find, called Rapid AI, and they have an AI model in a hospital, in 2,000 hospitals actually, that scans medical imaging looking for signs of stroke. And their motto, or the thing they always start a conversation with, is time is brain. The quicker you can diagnose a stroke or equivalent
Yes,
condition, the quicker you can start the appropriate treatment and save somebody's
exactly.
life. And that's
Yes.
an AI use case, and it's an edge computing use case, and it all runs on Kubernetes.
Yeah, and that's amazing because that's truly about life and death.
Hmm.
You're talking about healthcare. So
Exactly. And then you start to worry about availability and security to make sure
I
that
I
application
know.
keeps running. Yeah.
Exactly. So anybody out there listening, if you have any questions, just throw them in the chat. We'll make sure we get to those. But just to kind of summarize what we've talked about, use cases, the the VMware licensing issue is one of the reasons why customers are reevaluating their cloud strategy.
Hmm.
And Kubernetes could be a solution for that. We talked about the platform engineering or development, application development velocity to get things done more quickly. You talked about AI and edge computing. We just talked about that a little bit more. And then resiliency. And I know you've also, Kubernetes also helps with security.
Yeah, I mean, it can do if you do it right. As with almost all technologies, there is really a way to screw it up if you
Right.
want to. But yeah, I mean, Kubernetes is designed with a degree of isolation. It's designed with access controls. It's API driven. You can absolutely set it up so that the right services have access to the right permissions and that things are done properly. There is also a huge security risk around Kubernetes, in that there are a lot of moving parts, and this
Mm-hmm.
is the challenge of this goes way beyond security. Now, I spoke about the ecosystem. I spoke about all the different elements that go into a typical cluster. Now, we might have, for example, we do some research about this. Anywhere from 10 to 20 distinct layers or pieces of software that go into making a cluster run before the application itself. So that's things like load balancers, ingress, monitoring tools, logging, secrets management, plus the operating system, networking, storage, and the Kubernetes distribution and all of its components.
Yeah.
All of those things are changing really quickly. Every three times a year, Kubernetes kicks out a new version. Every other version, a piece of software you've got in the cluster has security patches and new updates. As a platform team, I know there are vulnerabilities in those pieces of software, and I need to keep them all up to date to make sure there's no known vulnerabilities. And that means I'm constantly trying to make changes. It also means as you know, different types of users need to come and access the cluster, different shared workloads, new applications I'm trying to deploy, new infrastructure I'm provisioning to. All of those things have security vulnerabilities. The key from our perspective, and we're not a security vendor, the key to success there is consistency. You want as much as possible every single one of your clusters to be the same, running the same versions with the same configurations, the same best practices applied, the same hardening of all of the different elements. And if you have a patch, you can apply that patch quickly to make sure that all of your clusters are patched. And that then is kind of the question we should be asking ourselves or asking our customers is, when you've got 20 Kubernetes clusters, each of which has got 20 different pieces of software, are you confident that they're all the same? Are you confident that they're all in policy? Are you confident that they are all patched? And we can get into security tools and the advantages of Kubernetes, but ultimately it's those things that make the vulnerabilities and that make the difference between a secure infrastructure or not.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like there is a lot of complexity to deploying Kubernetes. Once you do get it deployed, how does Spectro help simplify the ongoing management and support of what you've deployed?
Yeah, absolutely. The reality of Kubernetes is that 80% of the work is in day two, and it's a fairly standard term, but for those who don't know it, day zero is where you're thinking about what you're going to do. You're planning, you're defining your models, all of that stuff. Day one is the provisioning, the actual deployment into things like different clouds or on-prem. Day two is everything that happens after go live, and that means certificate rotation, patching, scaling, backups, all of those things. There's a lot, as I said, a lot of moving parts with Kubernetes, a lot of complexity. It is quite a complex technology to learn. I might sound like I know what I'm talking about, but when you get 2 or 3 levels down, I absolutely do not. And the people who are tasked with doing that, they find themselves with a large infrastructure to support to serve lots of developers, and they have a ton of tasks to do every single day. And doing those things manually, it's just relentless toil, and that could be lead to burnout for these teams. Like some of these platform teams are 3, 5, 10 people serving a large enterprise, so they really need automation. They also are really short of skills in some cases. Trying to find a Kubernetes expert is hard.
Yes.
They're expensive. So you've got people who maybe are new to the technology, who've inherited a large number of clusters to manage, and you want as much of the knowledge to be not in their brains but in the system. So what does good look like? What are our policies? And to automate that so that every engineer is your best engineer. And that's a real line from one of our MSP partners, by the way. That is what you should be looking for, is how do I make sure that this is as foolproof to run as possible, in terms of all of those tasks like updates, and patching and certificate rotation or all that stuff. How do I do that at scale? That's where I said I wasn't going to do a sales pitch. That's where we come in. We are a Kubernetes management platform. We give you the pretty user interface and the API to go and provision Kubernetes clusters that follow a very defined template of what good looks like. That's what we call a cluster profile. Deploy that wherever you like. We support all the different clouds. We support bare metal on-prem. We support edge. And then give you the automation and the tools you need to do things like backups, patching, configuration, so that you can scale the number of clusters that you support with each person. The end result means that you can actually serve your developers better. You can scale edge faster. Whatever challenge it is that you're trying to do, our goal is to help you do it faster and do it with less effort. Now, if you're a partner, working as an MSP for your customers, that's great. That means hopefully a little bit more profit for you, hopefully a bit lower cost for your customers. If you're an enterprise team watching this, it means your small platform team is no longer suffering burnout. They're able to focus on the value added stuff, like being a better business partner for the rest of their organization.
Yeah, that's great. And Aptum also, we've been working with Kubernetes for a long time, and we do Kubernetes workshops. So for those customers who do have new engineers they're bringing on, they can do a workshop, and that'll get them some of that initial knowledge that they need, or some additional knowledge to help them further and again, do more of those value-added things.
Yeah, the education part is so big. Like I said, we just came back from KubeCon last week.
Yes.
10,000 people there in Atlanta. Half of the people there were first timers. Now
wow. That shows you the growth.
Exactly. Yeah. Kubernetes is everywhere. Like 90% of enterprises use it, but it may only be one business unit or one set of workloads. There's so much opportunity for it to still grow, and for new folks to discover it, and new folks who are maybe vSphere admins today retraining to learn this whole new computing paradigm and all of these new terms. There is a huge amount of work to do. You just need to go to YouTube and search for Kubernetes 101, and you'll find 1,000 videos trying to explain to you what a kubelet is. There is a lot of upskilling that needs to happen in the IT community.
Yeah,
take a class.
So
exactly.
I mean, this half hour is going by really quickly. So in a couple minutes, what I'd love for the channel partners, the trusted advisors who are listening, when you're talking to your customers, what are 1 or 2 questions you can ask them? I mean, I always advise just get in there and really chat with them about what their cloud initiatives are. What are the challenges they're running into? But can you think of another question or 2 that they can ask to help uncover some of these opportunities that we may be able to help them with?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to avoid using the word Kubernetes because you don't want to get into a technology discussion. Ultimately, the value and the pain is in what it means for the business. I would be asking about complexity, cost, toil. Now, how much of your developers' time, how much of your operations team time is spent on just fighting fires and keeping the lights on in your infrastructure? If they look wild-eyed and scared at what's going on, think about the scale that's happening in the future. New applications, scaling up, new business units, geographic expansion, whatever it is. How are they going to deal with that if they're just keeping the lights on today? So I would start with complexity. If I was allowed to ask a second question, it would be, what initiatives has your business got going on right now for the future? Are you trying to do store transformation in retail? Are you trying to roll out quality monitoring in the factory or robotics automation? Are you trying to train large language models? What is going on in your business? Are you trying to modernize your legacy VM workloads to reduce costs, whatever it might be? Because there's always a future that Kubernetes is a part of, because it is the de facto platform for orchestrating all kinds of applications today. And understanding what those business initiatives are, I think, is key to understanding where does Kubernetes fit in, and how do we make sure that all of the pitfalls in front of the customer are taken care of. Things like, have you planned for availability? Have you planned for air-gapped operation? Have you planned for day 2 management? Because a lot of the times they're doing this for the first time, and they need an expert to tell them what lies ahead of them on that path.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. And remember, partners, just a few questions, you start getting those signals, bring them to us. We will do the heavy lifting, and we'll do the deep diving, and and determine what the path forward would be. So Ant, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. There's a lot of really, really good information. You have on the Spectro Cloud website your State of Production Kubernetes report, which is a research report you mentioned earlier. It's a fantastic report. It's pretty technical. So take a look at it, download it. It's got a ton of great information in it. But really, if you need any additional information, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to Ant. We're here to help you. And we really appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, Vicki.
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.